If you're a father who knows you could be better, you're working hard to provide for your family, but you're busy, constantly stressed out, struggling to switch off at the end of the day, only to come home triggered and taking it out on your kids, the grumpy dad, or maybe you just struggle to be present with them, then first off, I want to commend you. You're doing your best. You're a fucking legend. However, there is a better way where you can have it all. In today's podcast episode, I'm going to be breaking down the 4 masculine archetypes every father must know about. To not only be a better dad, but to be a better partner or husband, a better business owner or leader, a better man. These 4 things are shockingly simple and they will change your life. So let's get stuck in. If you don't know who I am, my name's Tony Versick. I'm the founder of The Empowered Man. We've helped over 5,000 men fix their marriages and keep their family together while also building wealth and success. The first masculine archetype is that of the provider. This is pretty fucking obvious, but if you have children, it is your job to put food on the table and provide. We've worked with thousands of leaders, managers, business owners, or even just employees. And if you're one of them, you know how hard it can be to actually give your family a life of freedom. As a man, we're actually designed to struggle and suffer. Our body is resilient. It's designed to handle stress. Women, completely different. They're designed to handle the stress of childbirth, but the stress of work, business, it is not designed for the feminine energy. That's not to say that women cannot provide and work hard. I'm not saying that before some woman jumps in here and goes, "You're being sexist." I'm not. In reality, I believe that the nucleus of a great family is a nuclear family. It's a husband that works, a woman that looks after the children and nurtures them. Coming back to this idea of a provider means making enough money to give your family a life of freedom. What does a life of freedom mean? It means a life where you can afford to eat healthy food, where you can afford to provide your children with a lifestyle where they don't want for anything, not necessarily toys and all that sort of stuff, but they're in a great country with great food and they have the ability to grow and level up. Now, the pitfall with being a provider is that for most of us, we end up sacrificing our time, our energy, and our health in the process of actually providing. You see, in the process of protecting and providing, we stop eating well, we stopped exercising, we stopped going to the gym, we stopped looking after ourselves. And this is exactly what happened to me. When we had a daughter, I went into grind mode because I felt this heavy weight of the world on my shoulders. Now, in doing so, what ended up happening was I completely went to the bottom of the barrel and my health physically and mentally went to shit. So yes, we had money and yes, we had success, but I was depressed to the point of wanting to kill myself. And I was constantly feeling this anxiety because of all the pressure I put myself under. Then in that space of feeling depressed, I felt so guilty because how dare I think about ending my life when I have a child in my life? If you are a provider, you understand the weight of the world on your shoulders, the pressure that you feel. And this is where the second level of this masculine archetyping comes. Yes, you need to provide. You cannot be a bum. Work fucking hard for your family. Sacrifice for your family. But understand that sacrifice is mandatory because nothing good comes easy, but suffering is optional, which leads us to our second masculine archetype. And that is being a leader for your children. A leader is somebody who goes to the front of the line and takes on the battle head on. This doesn't happen anymore in modern society. In the olden days, kings would go to war with their armies. They would be on the front lines, charging the battle lines with swords facing them. That changed in the 1800s. Men no longer lead from the front. They are weak, frail men. To be a leader for your children means for them to understand and see that you are suffering, and understand and see that you are struggling, that you have pressure at work or in your business, that you have pressure in your marriage or relationship. And despite how fucking challenging it is, your children see a man who shows up regardless of how hard it is. They see a man who struggles and suffers because it is fucking hard to be a modern day man, and he gets up and does it regardless. And this is so fucking important, and almost no one does it well or properly. This is where it's so important as a leader, if you want to be a better father, to be connected to your wife or partner. In my relationship with Rosie, she actually communicates with our daughter almost every day. And when we're eating nice food, or when she's going to the park, or when she gets a new toy, even though my daughter's 3 years old, Rosie communicates with her, this is because of daddy. This is because of the work he's putting in right now. When I walk up to my office, it's upstairs, my kitchen's downstairs, my room's across the hall, my daughter's room is right next to my office. When my daughter says, Daddy, I wanna play, and I respond with, Daddy's gotta work, my daughter doesn't wanna let go of my hand, but I get to do the shit. I'd rather be with my family right now. I get to make the sacrifice now. Now my wife will explain to my daughter, Daddy has to work or daddy gets to work so that we can have the life that we want. So then when my daughter is older, she knows what to look for in a man who works hard, who pays the bills, who looks after her, because I've been that example for her. So yes, we get to be a provider. That's part of being a masculine man, working hard, putting food on the table. But step 2 is being a leader who leads from the front. A man who, despite the challenges, despite the stress, despite how tired he is, despite how fucking hard it is, he shows up regardless. And if you can get your children to see that, but not just see it, to understand why it happens, they will respect you on a whole nother level. You see, as men, we make this assumption that by working hard and providing, that's enough. Our children know why we're doing it. Our children know why we're skipping events. Our children know why we're not always there. They don't understand. As a provider, as a father and a leader, have you actually sat down with your children, whether they're young, 5, 6, 7, or teenagers, and explained why you work so hard? Explained the weight of the world you have on your shoulders. Explained how some days you don't feel like doing it. Explained how some days you feel like throwing in the towel. For most men, we don't do this because we haven't been taught how. We haven't been taught how to be vulnerable and honest with our loved ones. But if you're raising sons, you can be damn sure they're gonna struggle and suffer in the future. If you're raising daughters, you can be damn sure in the future they're going to be with a man who is strong and powerful because of you being vulnerable about how hard it is, or they're going to be with a weak man because you didn't tell them how you actually felt. One of the best ways to be a leader is to be honest and vulnerable about how hard it is. Don't complain, don't bitch, don't moan. But when someone asks you how was your day, you say it was really fucking hard. It was really challenging. But I'm glad I got to do it because I get to do this for you. Do you know how much respect that fucking earns from your team, your wife, your children? When you show them, you share with them, you communicate with them that it's not easy and you don't wish for it to be easy because it's your job. You say this, it's my job to provide a life for you. And part of that means suffering, but I'm willing to suffer for you. Have you had that conversation? Step number 3 is the role model, the masculine archetype. It's not just enough to provide. It's not just enough to suffer and lead and communicate with your family that it's challenging, because it is challenging. But the third step is to do all of that while also being a role model and showing them that it's possible not just to struggle and suffer and provide, but also to do it in a way where you look after yourself. A masculine man isn't just good at making money and focusing on one area, wealth. He's also mastering and committed to mastery for the other 2 areas, health and relationships. There are 3 key areas you must learn to master as a man: health, wealth, and relationships. If we're sacrificing all of our time for wealth, we're sacrificing our health. We're overweight, fat, unfit, unhealthy. Mentally, we're struggling. We're breaking down, we're getting triggered, we're getting angry from all that stress. We're the grumpy dad with our family walking on eggshells. Our relationship with our wife is shit. We don't communicate well. We yell at each other, we argue. We don't connect, we're not intimate. I'm not saying have sex in front of your kids, but holding hands, smiling at each other, respecting each other. Then what we're doing is we're becoming a negative role model for our children. You know this, you don't need me to tell you. But sometimes what we know is not what we do, and what we do is not who we become. We all know that we are being watched all the time by our children. They are hearing everything. They are seeing everything. A few weeks ago, Talia, my daughter, she's turning 3. We're sitting at the dinner table and she says out of the blue, "Mummy, when I was a baby, my name wasn't Talia. My name was Alina." 2 weeks before that, I was looking at photos on my phone with my daughter, 2.5 years old. And we found photos of her when she was a baby. And I said, "Talia, you know when you were younger, your name was Alina, not Talia?" She didn't even acknowledge it. 2 weeks later at the dinner table, she brought that knowledge up. Children are storing things all the time. They're watching how I communicate with Rosie. She's watching if I drink at the end of the day. She's watching if I'm grumpy or triggered at the end of the day. She's watching how many times I sacrifice time with her. Sacrifice is mandatory, but not all the time. So children are always watching you. They're watching how you show up in your marriage. They're watching how you show up in your health. They're watching how you show up in your communication. They're watching how you show up in every single moment of every single day. And they are modeling, the role of a leader. They are modeling how you're gonna be. And one day, your son or sons are gonna model how they show up as a man in their marriage, in their health, in their wealth, on you. One day, your daughter's gonna look up at you while she's holding your hand, and she's gonna go, this is the man I aspire to be with when I'm older. Not in some creepy way. The qualities of how you show up, they're gonna model that of the type of man they look for. So yes, provide, that is important. Yes, lead from the front and show them that it's hard and show up despite that, but show up in a way where you are a role model showing them what it looks to be healthy, physically and mentally, and also in control, communicating well in your relationships. This is something so many men struggle with. I was at a beach the other day, and there was like a nippers club going wrong. There were hundreds of men there, 2 with their shirt off. 1 was overweight, and me. The rest, no shirts, overweight, fat. What sort of role model are you in health, wealth, and relationships for your children? And I know this is hard, but I'm gonna break down the 4th masculine archetype, exactly how you can turn this around if you struggle with any of these problems. Just as a side note on this point, before we move forward, my father, I love him to bits, but he wasn't the best role model. And I understand why he might watch this and get upset at me. I've shared this before and he got really upset. But this is from a place of love. I watched my father and my mother separate when I was 4.5 years old. And for the next 10 years, I watched my father drink, take drugs, sedate himself, and play the blame game, be the victim. Now, I understand why. He didn't have the tools and he was clearly dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. It was the hardest moment of his life, which is why I help men fix their marriages. I'm grateful for that. Not my father's fault. I didn't get taught how to be a man from him. I didn't see him enough. My parents separated. My mother wouldn't allow to see him. So she has a role to play in this. And when I did see him, he was stumbling, he was drunk, he was angry. He used to be a really angry guy. So I saw what not to do as a man. Now I said, I won't be like that. And ironically enough, I modeled that as I grew. I drank way too much alcohol when I grew up older. I completely sedated myself. I took drugs. I had low confidence. My life would have been very different if I had the father I had wanted. Now I'm very grateful for this because it's why I do what I do and I learned a lot, but I could have kept going down the path of destruction like so many men. And that's the power of being a role model. Like, you model what you see, even if you hate it or don't like it, because your model of the world is built on what you see. You look at your parents as superheroes. So it's so important to be the right role model for your loved ones. I'm going to explain exactly how to do that in the next little bit. Before I share the next step, if you're struggling with any of this, you feel like you could be a better role model for your children, you are overweight even though you make money, you're struggling to balance business with life, your relationship isn't great, that means you're deficient, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's only something wrong with it if you don't commit to changing it. Now, it's really fucking hard to change without a plan. So if you go down below to the first link in the description, you'll be able to find a link that takes you to put in your details and get a free roadmap, a free system to build out a system and a plan for you to have the life you want, where you're a great father, a great husband, a great business owner or leader, where you have it all in health, wealth, relationships. If you'd like a custom plan on how to do that, go to the link down below right now, book a coaching session with my team, and we'll literally build out an expert coaching plan for you to have this completely free of charge. And this is where the 4th masculine archetype comes in, and that is of the teacher. And not only just the teacher, but also the student. As a man, we're just told to work hard and provide. So we're a provider, and we try and lead, and we try and be a great role model, but often we fail. We fail because we let that pressure and stress get to us, and because we're sacrificing so much in the pursuit of success, we go to the bottom of the barrel and we have no time. One of the best things you can do is teach your children the life skills of communication, how to communicate in a relationship, how to communicate as a leader, in terms of resilience, in terms of exercising and eating well, in terms of dealing with emotions, dealing with negative emotions like anger, stress, guilt, shame, hurt, anxiety, depression, things most men have felt. Teaching your children how to work through those emotions and shift them through their bodies. Teaching your children how to control negative thoughts, how to change the stories in their head, because our stories dictate our actions in our lives. But here's the thing. How can we possibly teach our children how to communicate well, have great relationships, control their thoughts, control their emotions, control their impulses, be healthy physically and mentally if we don't know how to do that? And the thing is, most of us don't know how to do that because we weren't taught how. My father, God bless him, he didn't teach me how to do those things. So I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of my life building systems and processes in the empowered man to create this. And I've had to do that through learning, which is what you're doing right now. If you want to be a better father, you've got to figure out where you're deficient. You've got to provide and be a great leader and be a great role model. But how do you do that all at the same time? Well, you need to learn. You need to be a student of the game. You get to become committed to mastery in health, wealth, and relationships, committed to mastering communication, connection, intimacy, committed to mastering having an amazing marriage that they can look up to, committed to learning how to do that, committed to learning about the different ways that women operate, committed to learning about how to be a better leader in your business so you have better systems and processes, committed to learning how to have a healthy body that's full of energy and being in control of your mind and doing that and having the time for that while also building wealth. How do you do that? Well, the lesson is learning. You must become a student of life. Now, there's more information out there than ever before. There's more podcasts like this one. There's more books. There's more courses than ever before. So it's not just enough to learn. It's about becoming a student and becoming someone who lives and breathes this stuff. That's how you have these other three archetypes. You are a man who is learning. And what you're learning, you're committed to that. You're teaching it to your children. And then by teaching it to your children, you're not just telling them, you're being a role model who's living and breathing it. You're not just telling them and teaching them, you're living and breathing it. It's like a fat personal trainer. You don't listen to a fat personal trainer or a broke business coach. You've got to show them by living and breathing it, by learning it. That's how you teach it. That's how you're the role model. That's how you lead while also providing. It's about having balance in these areas and committing at least half an hour a day to learn something new about relationships, about health, about wealth, and then implementing those things by taking ruthless action, extreme ownership of your results, making the time, energy, and space to implement this shit and make it a part of your life. And if you do that, by the way, every single day, 365 days a year, 30 minutes a day, it's 182 and a half hours of growth. If you do 10 hours of anything, you get good at it. What would your life look like if you committed 180 hours a year to growth and learning? What could you teach your children? How could you be a better role model? That's how you win at life. But it requires a commitment to invest in yourself, to put yourself first so that you can put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on others. One of the worst things you can do is put your family first. It begins with putting yourself first. And this is something so many of us struggle with because we're not taught how. So quickly recapping this, step one, to be a better father, you must be a provider. That is important. You have to provide money and freedom for your family, but you also get to provide presence, patience, power, and purpose. You can't do that unless you're a leader who leads from the front, despite how hard it is. You show up and you communicate that with your loved ones, that it is hard and that you don't want to show up and that life's not easy, but they see you show up anyway. You become a role model who shows them exactly what it's like to be a man in relationships, in marriage, in business, in health. And you can only do that. You can only teach them by learning yourself, by filling those knowledge gaps in your life, the things you're not aware of. Because if you knew how to have a great body that's full of energy, healthy, six-pack, while also having a bulletproof mind, while also making lots of money, while also having freedom and time, while also having a great marriage, you probably would have fucking done it. We all have blind spots. If you're driving on the motorway, you got your family in the car, you turn right onto the motorway, boom, truck runs you over, you die. You didn't do that on purpose. You did it because it was a blind spot. So hopefully this gives you some clarity. What is one thing you can start learning today? One skill, 30 minutes a day, go through these podcasts, and how can you implement it, live and breathe it to be the role model, leader, and provider your family deserves. Now, if you got value from this podcast, please give it a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, or 5 stars if you're listening on podcast platforms. It allows us to help more men and keep more families together. And if you want a custom roadmap on how to have it all, how to be a better father, a better husband, a better provider, a better leader, and a better role model, it's a lot easier with a plan. Learning's one stage, but having a proven system is so much more powerful. And we've helped over 5,000 men with the proven system. So if you want a custom roadmap on how to be a better father, go down below to the link in the description, book a coaching call with one of our expert coaches, and we'll literally build out your custom roadmap for free.